Well, the killer question will be, have any of you outside of the project and what you're learning around innovation continued to use patterning or elements of it? Like what's stuck?
Yeah. I definitely think intentional living will always be part of my life now. Just thinking about what I want to do. I'm not sure if I'll continue to use patterning. I probably will for like a while, but the intentional living aspect's definitely going to stick with me.
Yeah.
Definitely agree with that. Before patterning, I was just kind of like all over the place, like procrastinating this and that, not having really a self-care routine. I go to the gym, but that's just kind of second nature for me for being in the military and stuff. So I wouldn't really say it's like a self-care thing. But now setting intentions every day, and like, I don't listen to the frequency as much anymore, but I'll go for a drive and listen to music every day. And that's just kind of my way of resetting for the day and thinking about my intentions. So that pattern is definitely going to stay with me, I think, for the rest of my life.
Great. Great, Maggie. Thanks.
I do listen to the frequencies like religiously. It's just, how to explain it? I feel it physically, whether I need to relax, concentrate, or whatever. When I listen to it, it's just like it's like candy for the soul. You know what I mean? So I will keep doing it.
Might have to tell Lynn Claire that, Juan.
Yeah, if it's not to live intentionally, it's at least to get that sugar for my soul.
Yeah, brilliant.
I have to agree with Juan in the frequencies, like just being something that I go back to for relaxation. Like they're just really effective at calming and focusing me. And like, you know, like why I don't want to leave behind something that's working for me, or that's like actually I don't know, it's just actually I would say it's another like tool in my toolkit for a way to kind of to slow down, pay attention, to rest. Like on, you know, one thing I've been doing this year is turning everything off, all my, you know, computers, phone, TV, radio, literally like every single thing off for 24 hours. That has been one of the most like transformational things I've done this semester, this year. And what it reminds me of, so I did that this last Sunday, was super stressed about the report, but I did it anyway. And then I came back on Sunday night, turned everything back on, and I was able to sit and focus for 4 hours after doing this one very intentional, like I set an intention, like I'm going to do this, even though I have all this other stuff going on. I'm still going to do this for me because my self-care matters more even than my grade or my team's grade. Like my sanity matters more. And as a result of taking care of myself, I was actually able to sit down and focus and be very intentional and actually perform better. And that's the whole point of patterning. And so I think patterning has given me a new way to look at performance, and a new way to look at self-care too, and see those things as some, like, you know, so like they're wrapped around each other. You can't really separate them very effectively, at least not for very long. And that's been really helpful. I really want to see where patterning goes with the training partner thing. That's something I haven't felt like I've been able to really do effectively, but I still see so much value in connecting intentionally with other people.
Yeah.
And so as patterning changes and evolves and incorporates that a little bit more, maybe more into the app itself, I want to see where that goes, because I haven't given up on that. And I think that I still think like this idea of living intentionally with other people, either inside using the app or even just kind of more casually, like I've seen a lot of benefit from that, even with my close relationships. So.
Very good.
So let's flip the question on its head, right? So you're now no longer a part of our team because you've submitted the report, right? Now give us a very honest appraisal of what would you teach us? So we're going to go on and do this thing. We've launched our beta app in the last 36 hours. We've started our campaign, everything else. What would be if we never meet again, what would be the last thing you tell Matt and I that you think would be useful, having had the experience of working with us on this project? Whether that's personal to us or whether it's particular to the project, you can be completely honest. What would you advise us?
Keep listening the way that you have. You said of this kind of course of focusing on kind of flipping every marketing tactic on its, on its head and doing the opposite. You said, well, these are the values of this project, of this product. It's not just a product, it kind of makes me cringe even just call it a product, because it's a lot more than that. Yeah. Keep listening the way that you have. I think that you will learn. And I mean, I would say the way that I've seen you listen this semester, it's not just to us, but to the students that have, like gone through the beta test and have given their feedback and have shared last semester, the team, and also I'm sure many people outside of UCCS. Your listening is what gives you power, I think. And I think when you stop listening, patterning, the momentum will slow a lot. I think it's critical. Your product patterning, the app and the practice, all of it revolves around listening to people, to what they need, to coming with a product and then saying, how can we make this more about what people need and what they want? And so keep listening. Don't let that go away in 6 months or a year or 3 years or 5 years or 10 years. Keep listening and intentionally creating spaces to hear from people. I think that's where your power comes from, honestly.
Right. Great. Okay. Thank you. We hear that. That resonates. Great. Anybody else?
I would say just from our experience of pitching patterning is one thing that worked the best was just having a conversation. And what you guys were set on was not selling. Make sure you're not selling a product, but we're just having an open conversation about self-care and mental health. And I think that's important because it's still a very we couldn't even say mental health on campus. It's such a taboo subject. We're not allowed to talk about it. So I'd say just keep having that conversation until it's not taboo anymore, until we can openly just talk about self-care and how we're doing in life. And I think this app will really help create a space where people feel comfortable talking about it.
Great. Okay. Yeah, with you on that.
Thanks, Maggie.
I think both of you are amazing that you put all this together, and I think patterning has a very bright future. And I have full confidence that the two of you can bring this together and launch the app and be successful and all that. So I wouldn't worry too much about I just believe in yourselves, because I have full confidence both of you can do it.
Great. Thanks, True. Appreciate
That's
that.
true. Yeah.
In terms of more, specific details of the app, I think I would keep, as Hadley said, keep listening to the users, especially with the pricing of the app. How, because time changes and different generations have different, different needs. They pay in different manners.
Yeah.
And that will depend on the value that the app provides at the get-go. So, Hallie just said it perfectly. Just keep listening, keep those eyes open to see what people are really willing to give.
Yeah.
For the value that you're providing.
Yeah.
Thanks, man.
So we should tell you where we're at, because
I was gonna say, it sounds like you're in a pretty exciting place right now.
well, yeah, exciting in a sense that the danger is the point at which you launch something, even in the softest form, right? So you can manage expectations with investors and board members and partners, and you can manage it all you like. But at the end of the day, when somebody goes, it's launched, it feels like a big moment, right? And I'm speaking for myself here, so Matt, chime in. But my thing is that we have launched, we really believe in this conversation. And we really believe that actually conversation is probably 50% of the value of this thing, is opening that conversation about self-care and about intentional living, etc., etc. Our belief increasingly as we go from a beta process and a crowdfunding process into what will effectively become a commercial product in somewhere in the summer, probably July, is that Matt and I think, are now increasingly committed to the fact that this is effectively asking people to become a member of something for which the tool is then free. So we're not selling the tool. We're not selling an app, because Matt and I, and I'm speaking probably for myself here, we're not skilled at trying to acquire audiences for apps, because we don't believe in it. And so we neither have the budget to acquire an audience, nor do we have particularly the impetus or desire to want to acquire an audience. What we're interested in is this kind of conversation. And therefore, getting people to join us in this conversation, that might have a price attached to it. But ultimately, the app itself, that's just the tool that you get because you become a member. So right now, the way we're thinking about our pricing strategy is you pay a membership fee, but you pay it and you get the tool for life. What we might then do down the line is to provide other perks that you might pay for within your membership, as you do if you're a member of a club or anything else in your life. But ultimately, what you're paying is a joining fee. And you're a joining fee to come with Matt and I on a process that, like this, I suspect will be replicated across the globe with other people that aren't just Matt and I. We've just ignited a conversation that we hope will be of value to people. And the app just facilitates you taking that back into your private life and continuing a practice, but it's not defined by the app. It's just a tool. And they're probably, and for Matt and I, given the way we think about the world and the kind of innovation that drives us, there'll be many other versions of this down the line. It's just that we happen to have started with an app. But I suspect there are many other ways that pattern can exist in the world and be valuable to individuals. We just can't see it yet because we've been focused on developing an app, but it will come. Is that fair, Matt?
Yeah, absolutely fair. I wholeheartedly agree with all of that. I can't really add much except, I've been this week listening to, just building on James' example of Calm there. I think we're reaching the zenith of digital approaches to people being the product. And, so whether the US government's going to break Facebook up and Google, etc. But because what's the end point of that? We're literally selling our souls, in a global economy. And it's ended up, pandemic or not, there's another pandemic that we're not speaking about, which is the mental health pandemic, right? Yeah. And yet we still all keep scrolling on our phones. So James and I pretty philosophically don't want to be part of that world.
Yeah.
And yet we have a budding venture that needs funding to grow. So that's where we've got to this idea of, well, what are we actually selling, if you ask that question? And so, I think at this point, now that we're talking about it and we're going out to ask people to lean in, we're in that really space of right now, Haley, to your point, we absolutely do not know how this is going down with people, given they are not with us on a Zoom call. Because we know if James and I can hold people's hands into this space, well, I've seen extraordinary results with a couple of my friends who would not normally go for something like patterning. Certainly nothing to do with meditation, and not a lot of self-care, to be honest.
No.
But they've had to from some life events, and they've grabbed patterning with both hands and have made it a daily practice and are receiving extraordinary benefits from it. So, my own piece, and I know James sort of agrees with this, although slightly differently, is I would like to ignite it and hand it off. I'd like there to be, from a crowd of people leaning in, that it just starts to take on a life of its own.
Completely right.
And
Yeah.
from that co-creative community, which could grow and grow and grow, we hear new insights and ideas, and we just innovate and offer them back.
Yeah.
That's how we'd love to do it. I also, just to close on the other thread we did talk about, we're about to start, or I'm about to handhold a business down here through prototyping patterning. And I think that's another coalface opportunity to go, does this deliver for a blue collar kind of worker to think about their intentional working and what they're doing every day, and relating that to their own performance, mainly because they're under a bit of pressure in this business and they need to. So, you know, I've personally seen it work with my friends. I'd like to personally see it working with workers, and then that will give us all the confidence to go, we have got something. We just got to work out how to bridge it into people's lives. James and I can't handhold every single person onboarding into patterning. And so it's how do you replicate that so people can handhold them into, because it needs it.
Yeah.
An app's just going to live in the app store and die if we don't get that onboarding piece of innovation right.
Yeah.
And that'll be our next challenge, I think.
Absolutely.
But you know, it goes back to a very simple principle, which I hope we kind of made clear all the way through this, is the network effect, which is our business model, right? Which says we don't have $10 million to acquire an audience. The network effect is, if we've influenced you guys, you'll talk about it, right? And if you talk about it, you'll influence the next person. Whether they buy the app in a traditional sense of buying an app, don't know, right? Will they lean into a process of thinking about intentional living, and might they become a member of a growing community of people who are living by that sort of principle? Yeah, possibly. But I think what we have from a business innovation point of view, what we are lucky with in some respects, is the person who's ultimately put up most of the money for us to start this thing doesn't have a kind of grand exit in their heads. So they're not like they're looking to sort of triple, 10x their money in 3 years. So flog the app as hard as you can because we want to exit. I think in many respects, unlike a lot of other people in our position, that pressure is not there. We have a slightly different pressure, which is we need money. There's no question. We need this to be commercially successful, but we need it to be commercially successful in a way that doesn't have to just create some crazy valuation that we're trying to exit. And we all know that in the innovation space, most valuations are based on volume. We're not interested in volume. We're interested in the right people leaning in the right way. So Matt and I are increasingly of a view that it's effectively a one-time purchase, that you become a member of this thing at this point. And who knows what's going to happen in 2022, 2023. Don't know. That's really exciting as far as we're concerned. The opportunity to innovate another business model that takes our members on a second journey and starts getting them to spend money in other ways. That's future BI teams will be working with us on that, as far as I'm concerned. The starting point, which I think for me was a really important part of the conversation we had with you guys, is what is the pricing strategy based on you guys very clearly stating at a certain point, we don't really pay for this stuff. So if you're trying to sell us an app, kind of forget about it. And we go, that was a real pause for thought for us, which is, okay, we've got to stop thinking about this as an app, because we've never really thought about it in those terms. But the danger is you do default to that business model, which is how can you justify a price for an app? And I think Matt and I, with your guidance, kind of went, no, this is not about an app. The app is the tool that we give away. Question is, what are they joining? What do you become? What do you start to belong to? Because the existential bit of why we started Pattern is really the bit that drives Matt and I forward. It's not I will feel no better at the end of the year saying we sold a load of app subscriptions. It's kind of, so what?